Hi again. I'm Yokori. Just a manju, a band full of sweet bean paste. A likely opinion tells me that Japanese people in ancient and immemorial times regarded a mountain as a different sphere, which is located on a periphery of a community, a region ruled by deities, and often the underworld, for the dead to go to, so that they avoided approaching it, in awe and reverence. Therefore, for Japanese people, until they imported modern alpinism from the Western world, in a later period or Meiji era, an action to climb a mountain had been never recreation and leisure time, much less compensatory behavior for conquest, but their religious belief-based practice, beyond mere training of the body and mind. They have often attributed the origin of mountain climbing in Japan to mountain asceticism in Shugen-do, founded by a legend called In no Gyoja. So, you might say, a feeling of awe to mountains, in the present day, when they are surrounded with monitoring eyes, of information devices, and apparently lack of space for deities, spirits, or the dead, has originated in a kind of renaissance of Japanese ethnic memoria. Now, here is a story following. Please enjoy yourself. I've got a job of facility management, in a Docomo Group company, and had quite an unbelievable experience, on the end of last year. Although I had neither believed in some kind of ghosts, and yokai, nor encountered such a phenomenon, what happened to me now, was enough to overturn my recognition like that. I'm still unsure, whether it was an actual event, or no more than my illusion, though. On December 27th in the last year, my two superiors and I came to an open radio steel tower with a sector antenna on the mountain top, for an inspecting operation. We were climbing the mountain path by car at first, but became unable to go forward anymore on the way, due to our lack of any kind of equipment for deep snow, such as a studless winter tire, which obliged us to park the car in front of a shrine, and ascend on foot about a mile. Because the surface of snow was frozen, it sounded like a crunching noise when I stepped on. It was strange that no snow lied on trees, so that I asked why to Mr. K, my supervisor, and he replied,
"Because snow piled up on trees falls down soon."
We were often captivated by the surrounding landscape thus, and slipped up by snow, which spent our time much than 30 minutes, before approaching to the steel tower. As we found the steel tower nearby, and penetrated deep into a woodland path from a roadway, Mr. K said with raising his eyes up,
"Hey, something is hooked by the tree branch."
Mr. T, the other supervisor, and I looked upward, found something like a piece of cloth, flowing in the wind, white and narrow, on the tree branch 16 feet 5 above the ground. Moving forward furthermore, we found the same thing, twining around the fence, surrounding the steel tower, and its iron-barred gate. The approach and observation at close quarters got us aware that they were not cloth, but paper split into pieces, on which something was written with brush and ink, and blurred like blotches.
Is it some kind of pranks by forestry workers? Geez, it's creepy.
Talking to each other like that, unlocked the key of the gate, and stepped into the site. Although it should have followed then, we couldn't unlock the door of steel tower, with our key thrust into. Wondered something wrong, turned the key in the opposite direction, and found myself capable to unlock it now. It seemed to be unlocked here, I told them, and got Mr. K's refutation.
Impossible. I surely locked the key at my last inspection.
It smelled a little strange inside the steel tower. The other two also seemed to come aware of it, and said,
"It stinks a bit."
While I was checking out the panels of power source and communication, Mr. T raised up a moaning voice in the back.
Ugh.
Approaching there, I found a bunch of animal hairs under the stairs.
"It's probably that of a deer, isn't it?"
said Mr. K, who observed it. Putting the bunch away with our feet, We found out some marks of blood beneath it,
I wonder if she got eaten here.
said Mr. T. Even if considering those, I felt something incompatible with his story, due to absence of any bone, and shortage of bloodstains. In addition, the entrance door was closed, so that an animal was hardly expected capable to get inside, even if the key had been unlocked. With suspicion about something but no idea about its cause, we anyway gathered the hairs into one bundle, and swept at it. We brought a fraction of snow from outside, scraped the bloodstains to soften with it, and left them alone. Cold and spooky, with just an intention on finishing the inspection soon, and leaving there, we filled a blank of our checklist one after another. Hoot, it sounded in distance like that. Possibly Mr. K's voice, who had gone toward an empty net, was, I thought, so shouted, "Case on," and received his reply.
What's up?
From another direction, unexpected, though. I felt something wrong, but said to myself, it was Mr. T's voice, who went outside at work, and forgot it. Finally finished my inspection, went out of the door, and I found myself alone. Although I searched for Mr. T around there, I couldn't find him. When I was waiting for him with hesitation to enter inside alone, without a certain reason, Mr. K and T came out together soon. T-san, did you call to me from outside a little while ago?
Why, I never. We were on inspection of bolts on the upper side.
That sounds strange to me. I heard of someone crying out, "Hoot," some time ago.
We also heard of, and thought it was yours beyond any doubt.
That's wrong.
Well, I wondered it, because it was from a near place unexpected, that your voice calling to me.
Talking to each other like that, we confirmed the door was surely locked together, and came out of the fence. The narrow pieces of paper looked uncanny, which prevented us from touching them as possible. It was sunset before long, and getting dark, so that we started to walk toward our car in a hurry. I followed after Mr. K and T at a distance. We walked with the downcast eyes, to watch our steps on a slippery downward slope. It was so serene in a surrounding wood, without any sound except our footsteps, crunching through snow. The sunset glow appeared in the distance, through the grayish clouds. While sunk in my thought about that event, and dim eyes on my steps, I felt something wrong with it. On the both slope up and down, we walked on the left side of our road, so that our footprints on the hill up and down, must remain on the opposite side each other. But I found smaller footprints added, in front of me, between Mr. T and K's in parallel. At first, I wondered if they were my footprints, when climbing the hill up, which had to be on the opposite side of the road. Because of a strong impression, by the perfectly fresh snow surface on uphill road, I scarcely could think they were someone's footprints impressed on before ours. Therefore, they were nothing but one's left, while we were walking the hill up. Looking closely, the footmarks were extending downward. So, they must be someone's, who had climbed down the mountain in advance of us, I thought at that time. But when, and where from, did he or she ascend the mountain? And I had a much worrying matter than it, the person must be with bare feet in all probability. Perhaps, one walking on snow with his sure bare feet, won't be sane. I tried to raise my eyes up, in order to call their attention, who were going forward. At that moment, a bare foot popped up at upper side of my sight, I mean right in front of my feet. Oops! Was what I thought of, which interrupted my feet's movement in spite of myself. The foot disappeared from my sight now, so I raised my eyes up to look forward, against dread and hesitation. But I couldn't find anyone, but Mr. K and T walking at a distance in parallel. There was nothing in motion at all, despite my looking out over our surroundings. Although I felt strange about it, I could do nothing more, but to start walking again, with watching my steps. In a while, the foot emerged in front of me again. Surprised to stop walking on, I lost sight of the foot in a sudden. However, I caught it within my view field, as soon as resumed walking on. The small, pale and bare feet, so to speak, kept steps with me, but about 4 feet ahead. I found whitish pieces of cloth, which covered one's heels with. I got scared too, unable to look forward, continued to proceed down the hill in an intent manner, with looking down my steps. Listening carefully, I caught Mr. K and T's murmuring voices ahead. A crunchy sound of footsteps was superimposed on their voices, but I couldn't tell the number of footsteps, definitely either 3 or 4. But I assumed, somehow, that the feet in front of me was not making any noise. Then, at the same time, when the sound of 2 footsteps going forward paused, the bare foot disappeared suddenly from my sight too. Lifting my eyes timidly, I found myself unnoticeably in front of our car. It made me easy from the bottom of my heart, so I rushed at the car. However, Mr. K and T brought up their sudden insistence on our making a pilgrimage to the shrine there. It was almost dark, so that we would be unable to go home, due to a frozen road, if spending our time there. Although they must understand it enough, Two claimed.
We have to visit the shrine now we've come here, let's go by everyone, cause it'll be finished quickly.
With watching the precincts from its entrance, I could never tell what and where it was, because of a shadowy grove thriven, in the back of a torii, a guard frame of a Shinto shrine. Despite my held disagreement about entering such a place, on the other hand, it was scary, that I was left alone at the car park, so that I prevailed on Two, to quit the visit and get into the car. Launching the car in a sudden, I felt chill at several times, with slips on a snow road, due to overspeed though. Despite some dangerous scenes, both of them were sitting on the seat without a voice. Glancing at them with the rearview mirror, their heads were shaking as if they were asleep, but their eyes were open to keep seeing forward intently. I found something wrong now, both were sitting on the rear seat. I mean Mr. T was always on the assistant driver's seat. Noticed about it, got unable to turn my eyes anymore, toward the front seat by my side now. While my driving, with only watching forward to the utmost, we were finally getting down, to the foot of the mountain. Then, both of Mr. K and T suddenly suggested, that they wanted to get off the car there. They adamantly insisted on their opinion.
We have an acquaintance around here, who we have to meet.
So, I'll take you that person's home, I proposed, and they claimed.
You must go home right now. The road ahead is enough complicating for you, possibly to lose your way for home. Get back to the firm soon, and tell them, we have returned home directly, please.
To be honest, I wanted to go home quickly, so that I dropped them down at the closest store. At the moment I glanced at Mr. T's unintentional action, when opening the door of assistant driver's seat, and closing it soon, I got goosebumps all over, and drove back the car for the firm quickly. On the next day, both Mr. K and T was absent from the firm. It's not unnatural for them to take a holiday, during that time before the shift work, over the year-end and New Year season, but I was worried about it, because of my experience on the previous day. Calling to their cellular phones, I couldn't get hold of Mr. T. But Mr. K laughed away my worry.
Can't you avoid calling me on even a holiday?
So that I came a bit eased then. However, both of them were finally absent from the shift work, on the New Year holidays. Furthermore, Mr. T retired from the company, at the very beginning of the year. I don't know the reason for his retirement, but it seemed that he tendered his registration by post. Responses to the story.
You might doubt it, you should be purified at once. Suggest you ask for help at a temple.
Do you mean, some temple is holding a purifying ceremony, if asked for? Can I avoid telling them the circumstances?
You'd better tell them the truth, I think.
Thank you so much. Unless I can get hold of Mr. K until February, I will ask for help at a temple.
You cannot avoid another operation inspecting the same steel tower, someday again. What will you do in that case? And for your colleagues going with you? I'm very concerned about it.
because I can have a colleague change, inspecting operations with me, I will avoid going to the steel tower anymore. And I have a design, about putting in a transfer request, to the General Affairs section at the next opportunity, too. They haven't often assigned me such a work, with considering I'm a woman, and I reported what had happened there, in the remarks column, so that my choice will probably go through. I'm anxious about a substitute for me, but I might be concerned too much, perhaps.
Is there anyone but me consent to it, when informed that Dokumo-san is a woman? Haven't you guys forgotten it? A mountain deity is a goddess, who is very jealous. They traditionally forbade a woman to enter a mountain, at many places, and sometimes gave a woman as a human sacrifice, to the deity. It was because of having violated the sanctity, with building the steel tower, that the abnormality inside it happened, wasn't it? The locals have performed such a ceremony in secret, so never changed their altar, even though strangers built the steel tower. But I assume that they've become to substitute their spoils of the chases, domestic animals, or dogs, for women sacrifices, in contrast with old habits. You three invaded the mountain deity's dining area carelessly. You broke the taboo by not only your invasion, but also clean up without her permission, furthermore, accompany with a woman, so that she could no longer remain silent. But before you went down the mountain, 2 colleagues had been possessed with the mountain deity, invited to the shrine, and forced to leave you there in compensation for the taboo. But she couldn't do it, so invited 1 and 2 colleagues to her residence, as a partner for life. Assuming that, I can be convinced. Missing one may be with the mountain deity, dead or alive. You would say that he who went missing, is a better looking man than the other, right? And I've got that kind of feeling, that it'll almost become clear, if asking the other where he had gone, and what happened to him. Anyway, it's best for you never to visit that shrine. But an insistent deity tries to call forth you, at the same place under the veil of your business, so you should be purified sooner before that. Could you come to mind about any elements in her name, suggestive to deitiness, female deitiness, or animal spirituality, such as Hachiman, Inugami, or Gongen? If she has such a name, you should visit the Grand Head Shrine of all the same lineage. In other words, it's just the same as you must negotiate with a gangster boss, to get him play an intercessory role with a punk, one of his followers, picking a fight against you. But limited to temples, I have no idea which one is the best. I'm so much frightened with Dokumo-san's story. I'm asking my colleagues whether they can remember any scary story, because my company is also on the job, involving to steel towers, which Dokumo Group has constructed. For our work, we have to be most careful of a facility management, or receive quite a severe reprimand by NTT, so that you can never forget to lock the key absolutely, you know.
Thank you all for replies. I'm illuminated so much with your knowledge, because I'm not familiar with spiritual things, such as a mountain deity. I haven't get through to both Mr. K and T since then yet, but I'm waiting for them a bit longer. I don't know which of them is more handsome, but Mr. T is quite younger than Mr. K. The mountain is named Tyson. Concerning about locking the door, I think it's unlikely that we forgot it, because we have the entry on the checklist. On the other hand, we don't set any alarm device such as a secom, on steel towers like that. I've been told because too many malfunctions could occur to it at mountains. It a bit scary story too, you know. How do you like it? The mountain name remains unknown, because you could assign various possibly correct pronunciations to the kanji. So, I gave it Tyson as tentative for convenience. We'll have pointed out that it might be Oyama in Kanagawa, or Daisen in Tottori, both of which are known widely as holy mountains. However, some of their particulars might conflict with the description of her story. Additionally, I'm concerned about the writer, Dokumo-san's wording to depict the mountain is named Tyson, because it might indicate that the mountain is not well known among generally supposed readers. Another perspective. I'd like to put the accent on the fact that the main part of the story doesn't require any information, essentially about the writer's gender. And it is nobody but a reader that brought a viewpoint of gender, which even the storyteller was unaware of, into explanation of what the story means, with description: a mountain deity is a goddess. Just for the record, such a belief is unique to Mitagi, the hunting communities in Tohoku Mountains, and never shared among the whole traditional religions in Japan. Anyway, his interpretation on the abnormal events told in the story weights possibility that the small white barefoot which appeared in the mountain was a woman's rather than a child's. Certainly, Dokumo-san describes that she doubted if the small footprints was perhaps her own at first. And it's interesting that Mr. K and T suspected the strange voices, hoot, was hers at first, which implies an improbable possibility at a glance, that she was the bare feet owner's alter ego in a sense. You would take such a voice, as a cry of an animal, like a monkey or a bird, in an ordinary sense, wouldn't you? However, this avatarity faded away with further connection to nowhere. Dokumo-san left the stage, as nothing but an ordinary person, without particular metamorphosis, despite her sharing the extraordinary experience with Mr. K and T. Now, it's time to part for a short while. Wish meet you again.